Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another video here on Shogun FC, and today you're going to get my review of PES 2019. And in the background you've got some uncut gameplay of me versus the AI on superstar difficulty, so yeah, enjoy that. But I'm going to get into my thoughts on the game from a gameplay perspective, from a graphical perspective, and I guess anything else as well. And I guess without any further ado, let's get into this. The first thing to note is that graphically this game looks absolutely fantastic. Konami have essentially stopped support for old gen consoles now, so it's just the PS4, the Xbox One, obviously the premium versions of those consoles as well, and the PC. And it's allowed them to go further in terms of what they're doing graphically, knowing obviously they've now got a full suite of hardware that can handle it and they're not going to have to tone it back. And as a result, we've got an incredibly beautiful game to look at. The lighting is different. A lot's obviously been said at E3. And this footage probably isn't going to do it justice, because we were playing on 4K monitors with the PS4 Pro. However, the capture cards, mine being an Elgato, we also had an Ava Media capture card there as well, they only captured in 1080p. So whilst you'll get 60 FPS and such, you're not going to see the full graphical brilliance of this game, quite frankly. But it's good enough to make me consider looking at getting a 4K monitor for, at least for my PC, just to get the best out of this game, because it really is phenomenal how it looks. It's not perfect graphically, but it definitely does look good. It's a massive step up from last year. The downsides graphically, I would say I'm not a big fan of how some of the kits look. It seems like they've been, well, we know they've been redone, remodeled and everything. Particularly the Liverpool kit looks really kind of waxy, almost plasticine-y. I don't know whether that's something they're going to change. I also, to be fair, haven't seen the new Liverpool kit in person, but I imagine it doesn't look like that. It looks like it's kind of made out of like almost like PVC. I'm not a massive fan of that, but maybe they'll add more details in the final build of the game in terms of the cloth textures and stuff like that. Yeah, so there's that. The menus for a lot of people are a massive sticking point. Personally, I'm not overly fussed by them. They've gone with a different colour palette this year. It's cleaner. It's not, you know, particularly vibrant in any way, shape or form, but it is clean and obviously it serves the purpose. The layout of the menus is pretty much the same as it was last year, at least in terms of the gameplay menus. But other than that, the graphics are really stunning. The lighting is really good in the stadium, especially the daytime view as well. You get the best out of that. In previous years, a lot of people would avoid playing the game during daytime because the lighting was a bit, well, less than ideal, whereas it's really good. It's fun to play with this time. Also, when it's overcast and it's snowing as well, the lighting looks really realistic. You do kind of get that, there's kind of dull overcast tones without making the game appear washed out, which is, it's well done as far as I'm concerned. I really like it. I'll give the graphics a solid 8 out of 10, maybe an 8.5. My biggest gripe is just the texture of the kits. The actual cloth mechanics, they're really on point. They're not overdone the way FIFA's are, but they do flow and bounce and kind of tug against obviously the player models and when they're running as well. So it does look good. It looks realistic, just that some of the kits look a little bit waxy. And on a side note, for the people who care a lot about how the pitch itself looks, the pitch looks good. It doesn't look carpety. 2018 was obviously a solid improvement on 2017's pitch, which did look kind of like almost like felty, you know, the old school AstroTurf stuff. 2018 was an improvement on that, and this is again another step in the right direction. Also the same with the nets. I know a lot of people really do kind of get hung up and focused on the nets and the realism with that. They look good. They look good. Personally, I'm not someone who's been massively bothered about it, so I would say, you know, look for yourselves and, you know, make your own mind up on that. But they definitely look better than they did last year. But the crowd is the real winner here in terms of the stadium graphics. They've absolutely nailed it. Up close, far away, the crowd looks very, very realistic. They interact with, you know, the context of how the game's going, celebrations. They get involved. Obviously, you can jump into the crowd as well. The way the crowd celebrates, it just looks fantastic in pretty much every sort of camera situation, really. Yeah, I'm very, very happy with the aesthetics of this game. It looks really good. And there's some of the nets for you. Next up, we're going to talk about the gameplay, and there are various aspects to talk about here. So we'll take it chunk by chunk, and we'll start off with passing. Passing was the biggest change that I noticed this year. The passing is really loose compared to PES 2018. And I say that in a good way. PES 2018, even on Pass Assist 1, which is just kind of the basic, the default passing settings, it seemed a bit too, not necessarily laser guided, but I mean, it was looser than 17's was, but this is really quite loose in that you can misplace a lot of passes if you're not completely on point. Your passes will get intercepted if you don't put the right amount of weight on them, if you don't, you know, angle them properly, and you can and will pass either to the wrong player or to absolutely nobody if you really do get it wrong. It's not completely like manual. I have played some manual gameplay, and that's really hard. But yeah, it's what you'd expect from Pass Assist 1, quite frankly. It makes you work for it. It makes you think about your passes. It doesn't hold your hand in that sense, but obviously you can still, you know, you don't have to overthink things. But yeah, the passing has definitely changed, it's tweaked, and it's better. Next up, it's dribbling. The dribbling in this game is, for me, I find it a lot more difficult. I was also in the presence of people like the Vernomator and David Fish, who are obviously incredibly skilled and talented dribblers. And whilst they were making it look a bit more easy than the likes of me, they also said that, you know, it feels heavier and harder to do. And I think the main thing that I took away from it, kind of by the end of the day, was that it was harder to transition between the 3 different stages in terms of running. So you've obviously got the normal kind of just standard dribbling, then you've got the sprint dribbling, and you've also got the really tight close control. And normally in Pro Evo you can switch between those very quickly, you know, go immediately from really close control into a massive burst of speed. There seems to be a little bit of a delay with that, which, you know, it makes things difficult, definitely. I'm still on the fence as to whether I like it or not. But I mean, like I said, I'm relishing a challenge at the end of the day. Still, I'm not 100% on it, I'll be honest. But the good thing about it is, if you do kind of, you know, sprint dribble, your players will be off balance. They'll find it harder to change directions unless they're a very, very agile player. And even then, It's not massively easy. So, you know, even with the likes of Messi, you're not just going to hold R1 and just absolutely run through somebody's team. But at the same time, you know, better dribblers will find it easier, which is what you'd expect, realistically. But yeah, I'm not 100% sold on it, but I do like it. Next up is the shooting. Shooting on PES 2019 is rewarding. I'll say that much. It's very, very rewarding. You have to have your player, you know, on balance. Well, you don't have to, but it definitely makes a difference. They're balancing their positioning, how they've approached the goal, what angle, what the touch was like before, the distance from the player and the ball at the moment that you decide to shoot. Whether you preempt that, whether you do it while they're on a run, or whether they're trying to dig it out of their feet. There are a lot more shooting animations, and with that also a lot more in terms of the end result. Yeah, so it can be harder to score until you get used to it. That learning curve isn't as steep as some of the other learning curves in this game. There are definitely harder things to do than shoot in this game. But it is rewarding when you do score, because essentially you will have to work for it, you will have to make it happen. But yeah, it's not like nightmarishly hard, but going from 2018 to 2019, it will probably take you about 5 to 10 games to really get to grips with how the shooting is and be able to consistently get that sort of end result that you'd want. On the flip side, however, the goalkeepers are questionable sometimes. There are a few moments where the goalkeeper's positioning isn't great. I found also with manual shots, the goalkeeper is prone to pushing it into the net themselves. And it's almost like they put their hand too far and then it kind of clips in off their thumb. That's a bit frustrating. It's happened a few times. So the goalkeepers are a little bit suspect. They're not bad. You know, if we compare them to the likes of, I think it was PES 2016, I think, where, you know, if you were one-on-one, you'd score every time. It's definitely not gone back to that. It's hard to say whether they're better or worse than PES 2018. If they are better, it's not by much, and they are a bit accident prone. I think that is part of the features that they put into it. They said they wanted a few more kind of outcomes possible from, you know, a goalkeeper's touch, different sorts of bounces, different sorts of outcomes in that sense, where, you know, it's not always pushed straight out in front of them. It's not always getting pushed straight to, you know, an opposition player, for example, as well. But on the flip side of that, I guess some of those alternative outcomes are mistakes, which I guess are going to be frustrating regardless. Obviously, I need a bigger sample size than, you know, the 9 or 10 games that I played to see whether this is a real problem, or whether it was just a case of what happened on the day. But yeah, it's definitely something to look out for. Not massively convinced just yet. The skill moves on this game are difficult to pull off. Again, everything's more contextual than it was before. So essentially what that means is that, you know, your player will have to be on balance. The positioning will be a big deal. You know, the way you dribble, the speed at which you dribble, and obviously the player you use. It means that it's hard to pull off skill moves. I've been able to pull off a couple of my standard ones, you know, my roulettes, my double touches, those sorts of things. The basic skills, really. They work, and when you do them right, they're absolutely punishing. But if you don't get them right, you will fail horribly, and in return you can be punished for that. The final bit, and the bit that really stood out to me, is that defending is super hard on this. The game does not hold your hand at all, like not one bit. Almost to an extreme, but it's good. It means your defense has to be a bit more nuanced. You know, you're going to want to focus more on getting interceptions. You know, you can't dive into tackles. You can't just chase everybody all the time. You can't just gegenpress your way through 90 minutes because you will just get exposed and punished, and that is just quite simply how it will be. On the flip side of that, when you do make those tackles, when you do get that right, you will be hard to get past. So it will set, you know, the good defenders apart. That's how it's going to be. And I was talking to some other people, and you know, they've all kind of said the same thing, that defending is probably the hardest part of playing PES 2019. But that said, of course, attacking isn't always the easiest thing either. So, you know, you're not going to be able to just waltz through people's defences for fun. It just means that defending, you're going to have to be smart as well as a good ball winner. The only downside that I've really found defensively as an actual downside is that the defenders that you're not controlling have a really small radius when it comes to intercepting. So it will sometimes feel like the ball's just rolling. Well, not if it's a slow ball, they'll stick a leg out, but the ones that are kind of like mid-pace, that they could maybe stick a toe to and slow down the move and that sort of thing, they don't always do that maybe as much or as aggressively as they should. And a few goals that I conceded on the day could have been cut out by, you know, an interception there, especially with tall players with long legs. But the ball does occasionally just, you know, seem to just slip past them when they could really try and stop that. With that being said, I'll still give the gameplay a solid 8.9. Not quite a 9, but still very, 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 very good. There are still some little tweaks from a personal standpoint that I think should be made. Interceptions would be one thing. And obviously, you know, there's still an element of me needing to get to grips with it. That's why I'm kind of holding off. It might be worth a 9 once maybe it's a case of me not being good enough at it yet. There are some little things that need tweaking, but it's a very, very good game overall. We're talking very, very good graphics, very, very good gameplay as well. Great pace to the game. It's not too quick, not too slow. Really cannot complain.